You look at your empty bank account, and you desperately hope that tomorrow will finally be the day your manifestation arrives. I'm going to tell you a brutal truth today. The exact reason you are completely broke is because you are playing by the normal rules of linear time. You are trapped in the exhausting illusion of the future. Today I'm going to teach you exactly how to cheat the timeline of the universe for your manifestation. I will show you how to completely bypass the waiting room and forcefully assume that your massive wealth already happened yesterday. If you are entirely sick of waiting for the universe to decide when you get to be rich, take a brief moment to subscribe to this channel right now. Your era of waiting dies today, and your era of psychopathic time manipulation begins in this exact microsecond. We must immediately perform a massive psychological autopsy on the catastrophic lie of the future tense. The modern spiritual community and the fake internet gurus have completely brainwashed you to believe that manifestation is a journey. They tell you that you are currently on a path, and if you keep your vibration high enough, you will eventually reach your destination of wealth. They teach you to use positive affirmations like, "I am attracting money," or "My financial breakthrough is coming soon." I want you to deeply analyze the exact psychological baseline of these terrible affirmations. When you tell your subconscious mind that the money is coming, what is the fundamental assumption you are making about your present identity? You are loudly and aggressively declaring to the quantum field that you do not currently possess the money right now. You are assuming the identity of a completely broke person who is looking at a massive financial empire through a telescope, acknowledging that the wealth is far away in the distance. Because the law of assumption is a perfect, uncompromising law of physics, the mirror of reality instantly catches the reflection of your separation. The infinite universe does not understand the concept of time. The quantum field only operates in the absolute eternal present moment. When you broadcast the frequency of waiting for wealth, the universe flawlessly orchestrates your three-dimensional reality to ensure that you remain in a permanent state of waiting. You will wake up every single morning, and the wealth will always be exactly one day away. You have accidentally turned the future into a massive prison cell, and your hope is the exact lock on the door. To successfully cheat the physical matrix, you must completely destroy the concept of tomorrow. Neville Goddard created the ultimate weapon to hack your timeline, and it aligns perfectly with assuming your manifestation happened yesterday. He called this specific technique, "I remember when." When you use this psychopathic method, you are actively taking a current physical problem and violently throwing it into the graveyard of your past. You literally gaslight your own brain into believing the wealth arrived 24 hours ago. I want you to let the massive, crushing weight of those three words completely rewrite your entire psychological architecture right now. I remember when. When you use the phrase, "I remember when," you are not hoping for a future event. You are not waiting for a manifestation. You are actively taking a current physical circumstance, and you are violently throwing it into the graveyard of your past. You are deliberately gaslighting your own nervous system into believing that your current poverty is just a distant, boring memory. I want you to deeply visualize how a true, physical multi-billionaire thinks about their past. Imagine a person who currently has $50 million sitting perfectly secure in their bank account. 10 years ago, this billionaire was completely broke, sleeping on a friend's couch and struggling to buy food. When the billionaire thinks about those difficult times today, they do not feel anxiety. They do not feel panic. They look back at the poverty and they feel complete, absolute apathy and a slight sense of nostalgia. They smile and quietly say to themselves, "I remember when I was completely broke. I remember when I could not pay my rent. What a crazy time that was." The billionaire can look at the poverty without fear, because the poverty is completely dead. It is a closed chapter. It has absolutely no power over their present reality. Neville Goddard taught that you do not need to wait 10 years to develop this psychopathic nostalgia. You must completely steal the psychological posture of the billionaire and apply it to your life right now, in this exact physical millisecond. You must look directly at your current, terrifying three-dimensional reality, and you must aggressively treat it like a boring memory. When you open your banking application and you see an empty account, the amateur manifester immediately panics, drops their God state, and starts begging the universe for a miracle. The psychopathic creator, the master of the time collapse, looks at the exact same empty bank account and simply yawns. You look at the lack of money And you silently declare in your mind, I remember when my bank account used to be this empty. I remember when I used to worry about how to pay my bills. Wow, I am so incredibly glad those days are completely over. Do you understand the massive, terrifying power of this internal conversation? You are standing in the middle of a burning building, but you are casually talking about the fire as if it was put out 5 years ago. You are actively gaslighting the physical matrix. You are looking the universe dead in the eyes and completely refusing to acknowledge the poverty as a present fact. By declaring, I remember when, you immediately sever the life force of the negative circumstance. You instantly withdraw your divine attention from the problem, and because attention is the only substance that keeps physical matter together, the problem is mathematically forced to collapse into dust. This psychopathic technique completely cheats the timeline of the universe because it forcefully removes the massive gap between you and your desire. When you assume that the millions of dollars already arrived yesterday, you completely bypass the exhausting bridge of incidents. You stop wondering how the money is going to come because it is physically impossible to wonder how an event will happen if the event has already finished. If you ate a massive, delicious dinner yesterday evening, you do not wake up today feeling anxious about how you are going to get that dinner. You do not look for signs from the universe to prove that the dinner is coming. You simply rest in the heavy, boring, and undeniable physical certainty that the meal was consumed, digested, and completely finished. You must treat your massive financial empire with the exact same boring certainty. You must wake up in the morning, stretch your physical body, and quietly feel the heavy relief that the millions of dollars were deposited into your account yesterday. You do not need to check the physical bank to confirm it. You simply need to assume the psychological posture of the person who just solved all of their financial problems 24 hours ago. When your subconscious mind accepts this massive biological lie as the absolute truth, the quantum mirror is violently forced to instantly rearrange the physical atoms of your world to match your new memory. You literally force the universe to print the receipt of a transaction that you magically implanted into your own past. We must now aggressively examine the exact biological mechanics of why your physical body absolutely hates the concept of the future. To completely master the timeline of the universe and successfully cheat the three-dimensional matrix, you must understand exactly how your primitive animal brain processes the illusion of time. When you constantly think about your millions of dollars arriving tomorrow, next week, or next year, you are violently destroying your own nervous system. Your physical brain is controlled by a primitive survival mechanism that perceives the future as a massive, terrifying black hole of entirely unknown variables. The biological brain absolutely despises the unknown because the unknown represents a potential threat to your physical survival. Therefore, every single time you project your massive financial empire into the future, your brain instantly hits the biological panic button. It violently floods your entire bloodstream with toxic amounts of cortisol and adrenaline. You experience this massive chemical dump as the paralyzing emotion of anxiety. Your chest gets tight, your breathing becomes shallow, and you start obsessively trying to figure out exactly how the money is going to come. You are literally poisoning your own physical vessel with the toxic chemistry of waiting. The universe looks at your physical body, sees a terrified animal drowning in survival hormones, and flawlessly reflects that exact terror back to you by keeping the money far away in the terrifying future. Now, I want you to deeply analyze the exact opposite biological reaction. I want you to observe how your physical nervous system processes the past. Think about a completely mundane, boring event that happened yesterday, like eating a piece of bread or walking through a door. When you access a memory of the past, your physical body does not release a single drop of cortisol. Your heart rate does not spike, and your breathing remains perfectly calm. Why does this happen? It happens because the past is a known variable. The event is already finished, the survival threat is completely gone, and your primitive brain feels absolutely secure. The past produces a specific chemical state of heavy, boring, and undeniable safety. This profound biological difference is the exact secret to Neville Goddard's ultimate manifestation technique. When you forcefully take your massive financial desire and you aggressively move it from the terrifying future into the safe, boring past, you completely hack your biological hardware. You literally bypass the survival alarm of your primitive brain. By silently declaring that you already received the millions of dollars yesterday, you force your nervous system to drop the toxic anxiety and immediately enter the chemical state of absolute certainty. You stop vibrating like a desperate beggar who is waiting for a miracle, and you begin vibrating like a heavy, unbothered monarch who is simply remembering a transaction that already cleared the bank. But to successfully execute this massive biological hack, you must understand the greatest vulnerability of the human brain. Neuroscientists have completely proven that your physical brain is fundamentally blind. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference between a physical event that actually happened in the three-dimensional world and an event that you vividly and aggressively imagine in your own mind. They both fire the exact same neurological pathways. They both produce the exact same chemical reactions in your physical body. This means you have the terrifying, godlike ability to deliberately implant a completely false memory into your own subconscious mind, and your physical body will have absolutely no choice but to accept that false memory as the undeniable truth. You are going to literally gaslight your own physical cells. You are going to construct a specific, highly detailed memory of the exact moment you became a multimillionaire, and you are going to forcefully implant it into yesterday. You must close your eyes and remember the exact feeling of opening your banking application yesterday morning and seeing the massive balance. You must remember the massive wave of heavy relief washing over your shoulders. You must remember exactly who you told, what you ate for dinner to celebrate, and how deeply, incredibly well you slept last night because all of your financial problems were completely permanently solved. You must rehearse this false memory with such psychopathic intensity that your physical brain completely surrenders and accepts it as a historical fact. However, we must address the massive, terrifying physical wall that you will hit the exact microsecond you try to implant this new memory. I know exactly what happens when you attempt to gaslight your own brain. You try to remember that you received the millions of dollars yesterday, but your logical mind instantly, violently attacks you. Your physical eyes look at your current empty bank account, and your primitive nervous system screams that you are a complete fraud. Your body is chemically addicted to the familiar stress of being completely broke, and it will aggressively fight the new memory of wealth because the wealth feels completely unfamiliar. Your stomach drops, you feel a massive wave of imposter syndrome, and your heart starts pounding. The fake spiritual gurus will tell you that this panic means you have deep subconscious blocks that need years of expensive therapy to heal. I'm going to tell you the cold, uncompromising biological truth. You are not spiritually blocked. You are simply experiencing the mechanical withdrawal symptoms of a physical body that is terrified of leaving the familiar wooden shack of poverty. You cannot successfully implant the memory of the future if your physical vessel is actively screaming that the building is on fire. You cannot cheat the timeline of the universe if your nervous system is trapped in a massive state of fight or flight. Because this massive biological trap is the exact reason why 99% of the spiritual community fails to collapse time, and because I absolutely refuse to let your primitive animal brain dictate your financial destiny, I have provided the exact, uncompromising physical solution for you. You must manually override your biological hardware before you can successfully reprogram your spiritual software. I want you to pause this audio right now and look directly below this video in the pinned comment section. I have left a highly specific, vital, and incredibly powerful physical protocol there for you. This is not a manifestation technique, and it is absolutely not a breathing exercise to make you feel positive. It is a pure mechanical biological override code. It is completely designed to instantly bypass your panicked logical mind, aggressively regulate your terrified nervous system, and forcefully flush the toxic survival hormones entirely out of your physical bloodstream. It literally forces your physical cells to turn off the alarm, drop the deep addiction to poverty, and enter a state of undeniable, profound physical safety. This absolute state of biological safety is the exact fertile soil required to plant your new memory. Go to the pinned comment right now. Use this protocol to manually turn off your biological resistance, and then come right back here to learn the final, terrifying psychological posture required to force the universe to print your new reality. When your nervous system is finally completely silent, when the toxic anxiety of the future has been permanently entirely flushed from your physical body and your heart is beating at a slow, powerful, relaxed rhythm, you are finally ready to perform the ultimate act of time manipulation. With a completely regulated nervous system, the fake memory of receiving the millions of dollars yesterday will effortlessly slide directly into your subconscious mind without a single drop of resistance. You will look at your new financial empire not as a distant fantasy, but as a heavy, boring historical fact. You must understand that the law of assumption is not about pretending that something is going to happen. It is about fundamentally knowing that the event is already in the past. When you walk through your physical day, you must aggressively maintain this psychopathic nostalgia. If a massive, terrifying bill arrives in the mail today, the amateur manifester immediately forgets their mental diet, drops their God state, and panics about the future. But you, the supreme creator who has successfully collapsed the timeline, you look at the physical bill with complete psychopathic boredom. You hold the piece of paper in your hand, and you silently declare, "I remember when I used to be terrified of bills like this, but since I became a multimillionaire yesterday, this piece of paper is completely irrelevant to me." You treat the current physical problem exactly like an old boring photograph from a life you no longer live. You must adopt the heavy, arrogant posture of a massive corporate executive who just signed a multi-billion-dollar contract yesterday afternoon. The executive wakes up today, puts on their suit and walks into the office with absolute, undeniable authority. The executive does not hope the contract is going to be signed. The executive does not look for signs from the universe to prove that the deal is real. The executive simply walks, speaks, and breathes with the crushing certainty of a person whose life changed permanently 24 hours ago. This is the exact state of consciousness you must occupy. You must stop trying to attract the wealth, and you must start behaving like the wealth is already old news. The exact microsecond your brain fully accepts the memory of the millions of dollars, you officially cut the invisible cord that connects you to your current poverty. You leave the old identity completely isolated in the past, entirely starved of your divine attention. And because the universe is a flawless mechanical mirror that absolutely must reflect your current state of consciousness, the physical matrix will violently reorganize its atoms to match your new memory. The timeline of the universe will literally bend to accommodate the historical fact that you just implanted in your own mind. We must now enter the final, most absolute, and entirely uncompromising psychological chamber of this massive masterclass. You have successfully destroyed the toxic illusion of tomorrow. You have completely bypassed the terrifying biological alarm system of your primitive brain, and you have forcefully implanted the memory of massive wealth into your own past. But to completely solidify your absolute dominance over the physical matrix, and to ensure that you never accidentally fall back into the exhausting trap of waiting for the future, you must cultivate the ultimate psychological weapon. I call this highly advanced, practically untouchable weapon psychopathic nostalgia. Society has completely brainwashed you to believe that your current physical circumstances dictate your emotional state. They tell you that if you wake up in a small, cheap apartment with an empty bank account, you are mathematically required to feel stressed, anxious, and deeply depressed. I am going to tell you a brutal, liberating truth that will permanently sever your emotional attachment to the three-dimensional world. Your current physical reality is absolutely nothing more than a temporary museum of your past thoughts. When you fully install psychopathic nostalgia into your subconscious mind, you develop a cold, arrogant, and completely detached relationship with your current physical environment. You literally teach yourself how to walk through your current problems exactly like a billionaire walking through a museum of their own history. I want you to deeply analyze the massive, catastrophic logical trap of taking your current reality seriously. When you wake up tomorrow morning, your physical eyes will open, and they will immediately process the exact same room, the exact same furniture, and the exact same financial problems that you had yesterday. The amateur manifester opens their eyes, sees the poverty, and immediately drops their God state. They panic, they get angry at the universe, and they start wondering why the time collapse technique did not work overnight. The supreme creator does not play this pathetic, exhausting game. The master manifester refuses to give the physical world the authority to dictate their internal timeline. When the master wakes up in the cheap apartment, they look around the room and they feel complete, absolute and highly arrogant nostalgia. They smile and silently declare to themselves, "Wow, I remember when I used to live in this tiny place before my massive financial breakthrough happened yesterday." They look at their old beat-up car and they feel a deep sense of affectionate boredom. They say, "I remember when I used to drive this car everywhere. I am going to miss it a little bit now that I own my entire massive fleet of luxury vehicles." Do you see the terrifying power of this specific psychological posture? You are not fighting the physical world. You are not aggressively trying to ignore it. You are simply removing its power by categorizing it as an event that has already permanently ended. To fully master this profound level of psychopathic nostalgia, you must fundamentally change how you view the entire physical universe. The three-dimensional reality is incredibly dense, heavy, and extremely slow to change. I want you to imagine that you are walking into a massive, high-end luxury dealership to buy a magnificent, incredibly expensive vehicle. You walk up to the counter, you hand the executive your heavy black metal credit card, and the transaction is instantly approved in the massive digital computer system of the bank. The exact millisecond the invisible digital computer approves the transaction, you become the absolute undeniable physical owner of that expensive vehicle. The deal is completely finished. But after the digital transaction is complete, the executive presses a button on their desk, and a small, slow, incredibly cheap plastic receipt printer begins to mechanically push out a piece of paper. The printer is loud, it is incredibly slow, and sometimes the paper gets completely jammed. I want you to look at your own behavior in this specific scenario. Do you stand in front of that cheap plastic printer, sweating nervously, crossing your fingers and crying because the paper is taking too long to print? Do you start doubting that you own the car just because the printer is slow? Absolutely not. You do not care about the printer at all because the printer has absolutely no power over the actual transaction. The printer is simply a slow mechanical device that is forcefully required to print a physical record of the transaction that already happened in the invisible computer system. This is the exact, perfect, uncompromising metaphor for your entire physical life. Your divine imagination is the supreme invisible banking system. The exact microsecond you assume the state of the multimillionaire in your own imagination, the exact moment you declare that the wealth already arrived yesterday, the transaction is completely and permanently finished. You are officially the owner of the massive financial empire. The entire physical world, the global economy, the banking institutions, the people around you, and your current physical bank account are absolutely nothing more than a slow, clumsy, mechanical receipt printer. The physical world is constantly trying to print the receipt of your past assumptions. When you look at an empty bank account today, you are simply looking at an old receipt from a transaction you made months ago when you were occupying the state of poverty. The old receipt has absolutely nothing to do with your current massive wealth. The amateur manifester stares at the empty bank account, panics, and tries to aggressively argue with the receipt. But the observer, the supreme creator who possesses psychopathic nostalgia, looks at the empty bank account and simply yawns with extreme boredom. The observer knows that the massive financial empire has already been completely approved in the imagination, and the slow, clumsy physical printer of the universe is currently making weird noises, rearranging physical atoms, and taking its time to print the new receipt of massive wealth. You do not argue with the physical printer. You do not look for a sign on the piece of paper. You do not check the printer every 5 minutes to see if the ink is showing up. You simply rest in the heavy, uncompromising certainty that the physical world has absolutely no choice but to print exactly what you commanded in your memory. When you truly lock this terrifying perspective into your human brain, the desperate need to check the three-dimensional reality completely evaporates. Why would you constantly look outside for proof when you absolutely know that the outside world is fundamentally incapable of initiating a new reality? The physical world is just a delayed shadow, and the shadow absolutely never moves before the object moves. You must become the massive, undeniable object of wealth in your own mind first, and you must place that object firmly in the past. When you master the time collapse, you begin to experience a very strange, highly advanced psychological phenomenon. You will start to feel a deep, heavy sense of relief. You will no longer feel the intense, vibrating excitement that the fake spiritual gurus tell you to feel. Excitement is the emotion of the amateur, who is surprised by a massive stroke of good luck. Excitement implies that you did not expect the wealth to actually arrive. The true master does not feel surprised. The master feels relieved, bored, and incredibly calm. When you remember that you paid off all of your massive debts yesterday, you do not jump up and down screaming. You simply let out a massive sigh of relief, your shoulders drop, and you go about your normal physical day. This profound state of heavy relief is the exact frequency of the wish fulfilled. Neville Goddard constantly warned his students against the trap of intense emotional excitement, because intense emotion is entirely unsustainable for the human nervous system. Your physical body cannot maintain a state of euphoric excitement for 24 hours a day without completely burning out and collapsing into a massive depressive episode. But your physical body can easily maintain a state of calm, boring, psychopathic relief for the rest of your natural life. You must completely normalize your massive wealth. You must treat your millions of dollars exactly the same way you treat the shoes on your feet or the bed you sleep in. You absolutely know they belong to you. You know they are there, and you rarely ever think about them with any intense emotion. You simply use them. When you forcefully implant the memory of wealth into yesterday, you automatically generate this exact feeling of normal, boring ownership. The wealth loses its terrifying power over your emotions, and you finally become the absolute master of the energy. If you have entirely absorbed the uncompromising heavy frequency of this massive masterclass, your psychological architecture has been permanently and violently rewritten. You can never go back to the exhausting, pathetic treadmill of waiting for tomorrow. You can never again allow the illusion of the future to pump toxic anxiety into your physical bloodstream. You have completely destroyed the massive, expensive illusion of the spiritual waiting room. You have successfully bypassed the terrifying biological trap of your primitive nervous system, and you have forcefully adopted the psychopathic nostalgia of the Supreme Creator. You finally understand that the infinite universe is absolutely not testing your patience. The universe is a blind, obedient, and incredibly slow printer, waiting for you to stop changing your order. But to permanently lock this terrifying, untouchable identity into the physical matrix of your reality, and to mathematically prove to your own nervous system that you have officially stopped waiting for the future, you must take one final, irreversible action. You must issue a physical command that completely shatters the illusion of linear time. I want you to step fully into the quiet, motionless, crushing power of the time traveler. I want you to scroll down to the comments section directly below this video. I want you to type these exact words with the absolute, terrifying certainty of a supreme creator who has completely hacked the physical matrix. Do not type it with hope for the future. Do not type it with excitement or desperation. Type it with the heavy, unbothered apathy of a god who is simply stating a boring historical fact about their own life. Type, I cheat the timeline. It happened yesterday. Let the physical movement of your fingers typing those words be the absolute last moment you ever wait for the future. Make the ultimate uncompromising declaration right now. I cheat the timeline. It happened yesterday. The massive illusion of tomorrow is completely destroyed. The biological panic of the unknown future is permanently turned off, and your millions of dollars are mathematically guaranteed. Go sit in the pristine, flawless safety of your new past, cross your arms, and enjoy the spectacular wealth that your beautiful assumption has already forced into physical existence.